So one thing we need to discuss first is kind of rotations. You can have one that is called a counter clockwise. Counterclockwise is going to be the opposite direction of a clock. So counterclockwise will be that direction. And then clockwise will be this direction. So those are two things that we need to know, counterclockwise and clockwise. All right, I'm going to teach you some rules. Once you know these rules, it should be fairly easy for today's lesson. So if I asked you to counter clockwise, I'm going to just do CC just for now to keep it faster for us. Counterclockwise, something 90 degrees. Here is your rule. You are going to take the X and Y from the ordered pair, whatever that X and Y may be. That X may be positive, the X may be negative, the Y may be positive, the Y may be negative, any combination of those. And what you're going to do to rotate it 90 degrees is your new point is going to be negative Y, comma X. So let's say I have point A, and it is 1, 2. If I asked you to rotate that about the origin 90 degrees, what would be your new point? Negative 2, 1. You take this, the Y becomes the X, and you change the sign of it, the X becomes the Y. That's what this said, right? The X became the Y became the X, but I had to change the sign of it while I was doing it. So again, B, oh, this would be A prime, by the way. Don't forget that. So I had B, and B was negative 2, 4. What would be B prime? It would be negative 4, comma what? Negative 2. This says the Y becomes the X, change the sign. This just says the X becomes the Y. Did I say anything about changing its sign? Just because I do it to one, does it mean I have to do it to both of them? You better start paying attention to the rules. You can't make up your own. What is C prime? The X becomes the what? So that's why I'm going to put it right back here. The X became the Y. The Y became the, but I had to change the, so it became 4, 1. Does that make sense? The rule for counterclockwise 180 degrees. You take your X, just make it negative. You take your Y, just make it negative. What is this rotating for this rule? When do I use this rule? When they ask me to? Which direction though? Counterclockwise 180 degrees. This is the rule I will use. So if A is 1, 2, what will A prime be if they ask me to clockwise rotate that 180 degrees? Negative 1, negative 2. The X stayed the same, the Y stayed the same. I just changed the signs. No changing of the X and the Y on this one. Do you follow, yes or no? B. What does B prime become? That's 5. So what does it become? 5, comma, -4. You just change the signs of those guys. And last one, just to make sure. What would be C prime? 2, comma 3. When we rotate 180 degrees, all we do is just change the sign. No switching of the X and Y. We'll talk about that in a second. That's a good question, but just let me finish this one real quick. In just a second. Finally, counterclockwise 270. Here's your rule. X, comma Y. It turns into Y, comma, -X. So if I have A is 1, comma 2, what is A prime? 2, comma what? -1. The Y became my X just straight up the way it is. The X became my Y, but I had to change the sign. That's all that negative does, is change the sign. Yes or no? Good? B, 3, -4. What does that turn prime to? The Y becomes your, so -4, comma, -3. Someone just asked a great question. What about a clockwise rotation of 90 degrees? Do you want more rules to remember? You want more rules? I don't want more rules. So you know what I say? I'm not going to clockwise ever rotate. Here's my point. If someone asked me to clockwise rotate it, I could put it 90 degrees here. I don't want more rules. So what could I use instead? What would be the same as clockwise rotating at 90 degrees? Counterclockwising at what? 270 degrees counterclockwise would result the same thing as a clockwise 90 rotation. Do you follow me? So when someone asks you to clockwise rotate, what do you say? You say, no, I'm not going to clockwise rotate. I'm going to counterclockwise. Why? Because I already know the rules and I don't have to memorize more. If I go this way to 90 degrees, Hunter, that would be this direction. If I go backwards this way, 270, I would end up in the same location. But that way I don't have to memorize any more rules. I can just memorize the counterclockwise rules that I have, and I'm good to go. Because remember, I said we're only going to do 3 of them. We're only going to do 90s, 180s, and 270s. So when someone asks me to do that, I say, no, I'm going to counterclockwise 270. If someone asks me to clockwise rotate 270, what am I going to say? No, I'm going to what? Counterclockwise what? 90 degrees. From here, someone asked me to rotate 270, that would end up here, correct? Well, instead of going 270 degrees this direction, I can just go 90 degrees the other direction. I end up at the same spot. Does that make sense? Yes or no? All right. Here's your example. I want you to clockwise rotate this 90 degrees, this whole image. CC is counterclockwise. Yep. in the book, sometimes if they say to rotate it and they don't say anything, like if I say rotate this image 90 degrees, it's understood they want you to rotate it clockwise. So if they say rotate it 90 degrees, it's understood to be clockwise. If they say counter, then you obviously know it's supposed to be counterclockwise. Do you follow, yes or no? This is point A. What is that ordered pair? I want to make sure before we move on, we know the ordered pairs. What is that ordered pair? 5. Everyone should be saying that out loud, or at least at minimum in their head. What is B? What is the ordered pair of it? 1, 7. C. Oops. C is what? That's correct. And D is all right, go ahead and counterclockwise rotate that 90 degrees. All right, so A turned into A prime. I should do it in red, or let's do green. B, what's B is 1, 7, right? What would it turn into when I rotate it? -7, comma what? 1. C is -2, comma 4. So when I rotate it, C prime would turn into what? -4, comma -2. And then D is 2, comma -1. D prime is going to turn into 1, comma 2. By the way, if I rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, yes? What does that mean for every point that's in this quadrant? If you just rotated it, pretend like I could somehow copy and paste this whole thing and just turn it. So now, you know how like on your iPhone you can turn this, so this would now be the up? Do you get what I'm saying? See if I can do it. You did it with the heart earlier. You were just moving. Anyways, let's plot these points. -5, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. That would be called my A prime. -7. 1, that would be my B prime. -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, -2. There's my C prime, and 1, 2. There's D prime. Hold on. There it is, rotated. Notice, what do you notice about these 2 points? If I counterclockwise rotated them too, do you see how they went over into another, just 1 quadrant over? What do you notice about C? It went to 1 quadrant over. What do you notice about D? It went 1 quadrant over. Does that make sense so far? What if I had this order appear here, and I asked you to rotate it 90 degrees? And so it would go this way, right? I said rotate it 90 degrees. When I say rotate, which way do I mean? Clockwise. And it would be the same as if I rotated it counter how many? 270, which would be 1, that's 90, 180, 270. Do you see how you can check to make sure, like just logically, that your new ordered pairs make sense of where they should be at? All right, try this one then. Yes. Oh yeah. You got homework that's going to be just like this tonight. All right. No, the new one. What if I ask you to clockwise rotate 90 degrees? Go ahead, do this. Okay. If someone asks me to clockwise rotate something, I'm going to say what? No. I'm going to counterclockwise rotate it what? What's our rule for 270? Because it's not the same as it was here. It's going to be what? XY goes to what? Y negative X. Y negative X. So the Y goes to the X. The X goes to the Y, but you just change the sign. Yep, same one. This is a separate example. This is example 2. Yes, I'm using the same shape, but I'm doing something different. Now I'm counterclockwise rotating it 270 degrees. So here's my ordered pair. Here's my ordered pairs. A, the OG is 3, 5. The rotated one would be called A what? Prime, and it would be what? What would be the ordered pair? 5, negative 3. You keep the Y, it just becomes your X, and change the X, it becomes your Y. Change the sign. B would be 1, 7. The rotated one would become 7, negative 1. C is negative 2, 4. C prime would become 4, 2. And then D is 2, negative 1. So D prime would turn into negative 1, negative 2. Yes? Because this says you're going to take the Y, and your Y becomes your X, yes? So you see my Y became my X, yes? It says my X then becomes my Y, but I'm supposed to change the sign, which means if it's a negative, it becomes positive, okay? Question? 5, negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. This would be called A prime. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, comma, negative 1. This would be B prime. And does this make sense that I rotated this clockwise 90 degrees technically? Look, if it's here, if I go clockwise, wouldn't that move it just one quadrant over to the right, kind of rotating right? Do you follow me? So that's called my number sense, making sure that my order pairs make sense. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. This would be now what we call C prime, and then negative 1, negative 2 would be D prime. Nope. Nope. Does that make sense on it being rotated? Yes? What if I connected this dot right here, which is C, to the origin, and then I connected this dot, the origin, to C prime? What is the angle that's formed between here? Because what am I rotating it technically? Clockwise what? Do you see how it's clockwise 90 degrees? And then this distance from here is the same as this distance there. That's how you're doing that rotation. Remember how I said it's like a string connected? So it's like, well, it wouldn't be perfect, but it would give us an idea. So it's like a string is connected here to there. There's a string connected from here to there. There's a string connected from here to there. Finally, there's a string connected from here to there. And then it's like those all same things. There's my 90 degrees, and this length is the same as that because that string doesn't change. Do you follow, yes or no? All right, last thing we need to talk about. I'm only going to do it with 1 point because I don't want to overwhelm you right now. But if I have a shape, I just do it for however many vertices there are. Do you follow me? First, I want you to reflect over x equals 1. Then I want you to counterclockwise rotate 90 degrees. So if we're reflecting over the x equals 1, where's x equal 1? What is that line, a vertical or horizontal? That is not from this lesson. That is something we've done in the past. It's a vertical line. It is this line right here. Remember how I taught you is just to pretend like you're going over to the x equals whatever that, and then just draw that line. So instead of doing the tick mark, just draw that line fully. So that is the x equals 1 line. To reflect it over, it goes 1, 2, it's 2 in this direction, so I'm going to go 1, 2 in this direction. What is this ordered pair now? Careful. -1, comma, 2. Order matters. Left and right, then up and down. Back 1, up 2. So it's -1, 2. Does everyone understand that? That is called A prime. Why? How many times have I translated that? Once. Now I'm going to counterclockwise rotate that 90 degrees. What's my rule for counterclockwise 90 degrees? Which you're going to have to memorize. XY turns into -YX. You're going to have to memorize that. That's not going to be given to you. So -Y would be -2, comma, -1. So it'd be -2, 1. So this right here would be a rotating. This would be called a double prime. That would be my final answer for that one. That will be completing both of these translations. Or rigid motions, I should say. What do you think? If you do whole entire shapes, what do you have to do? You just do it, what, multiple times, yes? When I say translate, what does that mean? So you're going to take the x and do what to it? Go ahead, try that one on your own.